What is going on, guys? I'm bringing you another video for Shadowlands patch 9.1, and in today's video we are going to be discussing my predictions for the best tanks in the Sanctum of Domination for Mythic. Now, they are very separated in this video between, world first, top 100, and like top 1000 in terms of what guilds are going to bring what tank and where I think they're going to rank. Now, for the reasoning for that is because what the world first guilds bring in most cases isn't necessarily actually the best tank. World first guilds take tanks, and I think a lot of other guilds in the top 50, top 100 take tanks based off of what they bring to the raid. And it's solely based on how good the DPS specs of those specs are in a lot of cases. For example, Brewmaster, Vengeance, and Prot Warrior, they bring raid buffs, right? Blood Death Knight brings AMZ, and for those reasons, they are looked at based off of how good they're going to be in the meta, based off of how good Windwalker is, how good Havoc is, how good, Arms and Fury are. So I think for that reason, my tank predictions is going to be based off of a lot of how the DPS specs are looking. Now, to start out, I think Brewmaster is in the good tier. Brewmaster's always a pretty good tank to bring to a raid. They have really good survivability. They can survive big, massive hits. With Celestial Brew now in the game, they can, for magic hits, they can, continue to bring up their stagger, purify it all, and then instantly get like a 50,000 shield, right? So they can take a big magic hit or even a bigger physical hit. And I would like to point out that Windwalker, oh, come on. Windwalker, here we go, is doing pretty good. So these are the 90th percentiles for 9.1, and this is on Castle Nathria Mythic. So Windwalker is honestly doing really good. And for that reason, Brewmaster I think is going to fall down a couple tiers because of the fact that Windwalker is going to be brought to a lot of raids because it's just a good DPS spec. It's going to fill one of those 5 to 6 melee slots that, would normally be filled by other specs if Brewmaster was needed, right? And Brewmaster isn't the best tank currently right now. It has mediocre damage, and its survivability is fully dependent on the type of damage that is being used against them, if it's magic or physical. And for that reason, I think they're going to go in the good tier. Now, the next spec is going to be Blood Death Knight. Now, Blood Death Knight is going to be in the great tier, and it's for one simple reason, and it is AMZ. AMZ going into 9.1 got a massive nerf, where rather than it just being a straight 20% magic DR on a 2-minute cooldown, it is now a 20% magic DR, but the amount of damage it can absorb is solely based off the maximum health of the DK that places it. And as you know, Blood Death Knights have a lot of health, and so AMZ is really only going to be good for Blood Death Knights going into Sanctum of Domination. So if there is a massive magic fight, you're going to want to bring a Blood Death Knight for that AMZ. If there is, for the next Sludge Fist boss in Sanctum of Domination, if it does massive damage, you're going to want to AMZ it. Or if any other boss, if Sylvanas does massive damage or Kel'Thuzad does massive damage, magic damage, you're going to want to have that AMZ. Not to mention, a Blood Death Knight in the right hands can survive almost anything, right? But that's where you have to give and take, right? If your tank player isn't comfortable on Blood Death Knight, it may not be worth bringing them for that reason. But they are going to be pretty good, in my opinion, for the simple fact of AMZ. You're not going to want to bring Unholy or Frost for AMZ. They're going to be brought solely based off how good their damage is. Now, the next tank spec that I think is going to be brought is I honestly think Guardian Druid is going to be world first. I think most world first guilds are going to take a Guardian Druid, and it's because they are unkillable. They're unkillable in almost every situation. If it's an ad fight, Incarnation plus the Thrash Legendary, they're never going to die. If it's a single target fight, they can bring the Bark Skin Legendary, which reduces the cooldown and increases the damage reduction that they bring. They're going to be unkillable every 45 seconds or so. So for that reason, I think world first. And on top of that, if a Guardian Druid can Owl Weave, but they can jump into Moon Conform and jump back out when they're not tanking a boss, they can do really good damage, especially with Heart of the Wild and Convoke. And for that reason, I think they're going to be world first, because the more damage your tank can bring to the raid, the better for world first, but it also has to be able to survive. It has to be able to survive the big hits, which I'm going to get to in the next tank, which is Prot Paladin. I think Prot Paladin is going to be fine. It it still struggles with damage reduction. Top players like Limit Max and other players like that did say that if they could have tanked Mythic Sardonathrius at the beginning of the tier with a Prot Paladin, but it would have been extremely difficult, right? So comparing it to the other tanks right now, I think Prot Paladin has the highest damage potential out of all the tanks, but it still takes way too much damage, right? So I think, you could argue it could go in the good tier, right? Because it still brings Ashen Hollow. It still can bring Ashen Hollow if your tank is Ashen Hollow, right? So I might just put it up to the good tier right now, right? I think it might be in line with Brewmaster because it does really, really good damage, and if your player can survive with the lack of survivability that, Paladins bring, it could be good. Not to mention they do bring other good buffs to the raid. They bring like Hand of Protection, Blessing of Sacrifice, and things like that can save some raid members. They bring Lay on Hands. So yeah, I think I'm going to put them in the good tier for now. Next tank I think is going to be Prot Warrior. I think the world first tanking comp is going to be Guardian Druid Prot Warrior. And it's for one simple reason. If we go back to the Warcraft logs page, if I scroll up a bit, Fury Warrior and Arms Warrior are very low on the charts right now. They're very, very low. Now, if you do put them in the hands of a world first raider, obviously they would probably get better. But for that reason, you're going to want to bring an Unholy Death Knight. If we actually go back to that, Unholy Death Knight is up there. Ret Paladin is up there. Windwalker, Frost Death Knight, Havoc Demon Hunter, which I'll get to in a bit. They're all up there. They all do that little bit more damage, which is what you need in the world first, right? So I think Prot Warrior is going to be brought for Battle Shout, right? And the fact that it is extremely tanky. It can tank so much physical damage. And, it brings Spell Reflect, Commanding Shout, Battle Shout, and those are all necessary things for the world first race. And for that reason, I think they're going to be brought over the other tanks. Now for the last tank, Vengeance Demon Hunter, it's going to be great. It's going to be in basically the same spot it was in 9.0. It's going to be brought if you don't have a Havoc Demon Hunter, or if your tank is a Vengeance main. It's gonna be good. I'm actually gonna put it above Blood Death Knight. Let's get over there. I'm gonna put it above Blood Death Knight for that simple fact. It's just good. It has great survivability. It brings the magic buff. It can tank both magic and physical really, really well. In the right hands, it's unkillable. Fell Devastation is great, and so I think it's going to be great. But the reason, and like I had said, that it's not going to be world first is solely based on how good Havoc is. Havoc's doing really, really well. So I think a lot of world first guilds are going to bring a Havoc Demon Hunter to fill in that magic buff, right? They're not going to bring a Vengeance Demon Hunter to fill in the buff. And so I think that's just how it's going to be. Now, obviously, this tier list is solely based on my predictions. It's solely based on my opinion of logs I've seen from the buffs and nerfs I've seen going into 9.1. That being said, every single tank on this list can get cutting edge. Don't take this as a, one tank can't get cutting edge and one tank can't. Like, tons of Prot Paladins have gotten it. Tons of I personally, as a Brewmaster in 9.0, got cutting edge. So I think it's going to be perfectly fine to play any of these tanks. But this is simply based off of where they're going to rank in the world first race. I think this is how it's going to look. And it's really interesting, right? Because for my Mythic Plus tier, if you haven't watched it, I go suggest you watch it. Prot Warrior was, it was good, but it was below, Vengeance Demon Hunter. And Blood Death Knight was below Brewmaster. So I think this is what it's going to look like. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you have any other personal opinions, check out my Twitch stream. The link will be in the description below. And I hope you have a good rest of your night. Peace.